Hello, good evening. Welcome to North West Tonight. I'm Roger Johnson. Thank you for joining us. Our top story. The Chief Executive of the Countess of Chester Hospital admits it took too long to contact the police over concerns about baby killer Lucy Letby. Tony Chambers apologised to the families of Letby's victims, saying his actions had prolonged their pain. Also tonight, a man's arrested after our investigation revealed images of women secretly filmed on nights out were posted online. The road less travelled, a new push to promote the 200-mile tourist route along Cumbria's coastline.
I'm at Anfield for Liverpool's huge game tonight against the 15 times European Cup winners Real Madrid in the Champions League.
The chimes, they are a-changing. Why a council has decided after 135 years that its town hall clock's too loud.
And North West has certainly been best today. It's been dry and it's been sunny across the board. But what's in store for tomorrow and the rest of the week? Join me at the end of the programme to find out.
The inquiry into baby killer Lucy Letby has heard that she was allowed to go back onto the neonatal unit the day after the hospital's chief executive was told that she might be a killer. Tony Chambers was urged by consultants at the Countess of Chester Hospital to remove Letby from the unit, but he failed to ensure that it was done immediately. Our health correspondent Jill Dummigan was listening to the exchanges at the Thirlwall inquiry today. She joins us now live from there. And Jill, this is the first time that we know for sure that Tony Chambers was aware of the concerns that the consultants had about her.
That's right, yes. This is the first time that we've heard from Tony Chambers, and he started his evidence today directly addressing the families of the victims. He said he was truly sorry for pain which may have been prolonged by any decisions or actions that he took in good faith. Now, we know the consultants have been raising concerns within the Trust since March 2016, but this meeting on June the 29th was the first to explicitly lay the case out to him. By this stage, Letby had committed all of the crimes that she would eventually be convicted of, and the consultants were demanding her removal from the unit. Now, Mr Chambers said he was very shocked by what they described to him, but at the time it was hypothesis and others strongly supported her. He added that he'd needed to process what might be going on. The next day, Letby was back on shift. When asked why, Tony Chambers says he wasn't aware that she'd been rotated on, but maybe he should have known.
Jill, she was removed a few days later after that, but even after that had happened, there were still plans to bring her back, weren't there?
That's right, yes. In late 2016, early 2017, Letby and her parents were fighting for her to be allowed back onto the unit. Now, he told them in a meeting that they were working to do that, later telling Letby herself, "Lucy, don't worry, we've got your back." He agreed that the consultants would write a letter of apology, and in January he got Letby's proposed return approved by the board. When he was asked why, he pointed to several reports that they commissioned to look into the deaths of the babies and said, "In my mind at this time, everything that we were being told by independent experts, independent neonatology experts, was that there was no evidence of deliberate harm."
And Jill, you also heard today at the inquiry that originally Mr Chambers told the police that there was no evidence of any criminality.
Yes, they finally contacted the police in May 2017, and Tony Chambers told them that there was a high statistical relationship between Letby's presence and babies deteriorating on the unit, but that there was no evidence other than coincidence. Now, today he said that what he meant by that was, "We can't find any evidence of criminality. You are the experts. Help us." Throughout his evidence, he pushed back against suggestions that they hadn't taken the consultants' suggestions seriously enough, saying that it was easy to look back now.
And it's probably the case even now. In the NHS, the biggest cause of unnatural, unexplained deaths in maternity and neonatal units is not deliberate harm, but failure in systems of care.
He said that they were just ordinary people trying to make sense of an extraordinary set of circumstances and trying to make the best sense of it. The inquiry continues tomorrow.
Thank you, Jill. Jill Dummigan, our health correspondent there at the Thirlwall inquiry. Now, a man has been arrested after women were secretly filmed on nights out and the videos then shared on social media. Greater Manchester Police says it thinks that the arrest is the first in the country linked to the viral videos. It follows a BBC North West Tonight investigation done by our reporter Laura O'Neill, who is here. So, Laura, how did this all begin?
So we started looking into this back in November last year when these videos started cropping up on different social media platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and they were attracting these really misogynistic, offensive comments. So I spoke to a number of the women who were featured in the videos, and they said they'd been filmed without their knowledge and without their consent. They also said the videos were making them feel really unsafe because a lot of them were being posted with, the exact dates, times, locations, literally minutes after they were filmed. So I spoke to Greater Manchester Police and they said they were actually aware of the videos and they were actively trying to catch the people doing the filming, but they were struggling because none of the women in the videos had come forward at that point. And that was until we spoke to Meg. She was part of our report in April. And G&P said after her interview aired, a huge number of women came forward.
We're able to contact a number of victims who came forward to kind of stress how affected they had been by being filmed and portrayed on social media. And as a result, we built kind of a good rapport with those victims, obtained statements, and as a result of that, that's then when we assessed that level of detail and felt like it fell off that line to harassment.
And that all led to today, the arrest. That's the development. What more do we know about this?
So today they arrested a 27-year-old man from Bradford on suspicion of stalking and harassment. And they said this arrest is thought to be the first in the country linked with these videos. They also found more content locked behind a paywall. So it was footage of sort of suspected non-consensual nudity and upskirting. And
what reaction has there been to the arrest, Laura?
So I caught up with Meg, who I mentioned earlier. She was in our first report, and she was so emotional because obviously she had no idea she'd had this massive impact. She didn't realise her interview had led to all these women coming forward. She said she was just really grateful that the police were taking the steps to address these videos. She said it sends a clear message that the behaviour is just unacceptable. And the arrested man, he is currently in custody, but the police are still urging anybody who's been featured in these videos to come forward.
Well done. Good work, Laura. Thank you very much indeed. Laura O'Neill there. Now, an inquest today heard that a mother and son from Manchester died in a tragic accident when they were covered by an avalanche on a skiing holiday last Christmas. French police were investigating whether other skiers were to blame, but the family of Kate Vokes and her 22-year-old son Archie have been told that there will be no prosecutions. As Phil McCann reports.
The search for Kate and Archie last December. Mountain rescue teams and helicopters looked for them after they went missing while skiing off-piste in a resort near Mont Blanc just before the new year.
L'avalanche aurait été provoquée par des skieurs en amont.
It was an incident covered by French TV. Archie and Kate were experienced skiers who knew the area well. Kate was well known in Manchester too, a director of the family-owned property conglomerate Bruntwood, owners of offices and workplaces across the northwest. On the board of the Royal Exchange, she was also a major fundraiser for social and cultural projects. They were killed by an avalanche that covered an area of 400 metres. At the time, the French authorities opened a manslaughter investigation, looking at whether it had been caused by skiers at a higher altitude. They were also looking at whether Kate and Archie's guide was wearing an avalanche beacon, which is used to locate people who are buried in snow.
This morning, though, it was confirmed in their inquest here in Stockport that no action is to be taken by the French authorities. Coroner Alison Much said that the view of the French authorities was that this was a tragic accident.
The coroner recorded the cause of death as asphyxiation or suffocation. The Vokes family weren't in court this morning. The coroner said Kate and Archie had died doing something which, it was clear, they gained a significant amount of enjoyment from. Phil McCann, BBC North West Tonight at Stockport Coroner's Court.
2 people have been arrested on suspicion of murdering a woman in her 70s. Her body was found at a house in Ramsbottom near Bury in the early hours of yesterday. Those being questioned are a man and a woman in their 30s. Wirral Hospitals Trust has confirmed a cybersecurity problem which led to a major incident being declared is affecting all of its sites. Some appointments at Arrow Park have been cancelled today for the second day. The Trust is still working to resolve the issue, which is also impacting its other hospitals, including Clatterbridge. General waste bin collections in East Cheshire could be cut from fortnightly to once every 3 weeks. Cheshire East Council is set to sign off the plan, despite 84% of people who responded to a consultation opposing it. The authority has faced financial issues in recent months and says it has no choice but to make the change. Manchester City Council has signed a 15-year renewable energy deal with a solar farm in Lincolnshire. The 100-hectare site, similar to this one, will be built at Bickerfan near Boston and operated by AGR Power. It's part of the council's climate change action plan and will save money and cut greenhouse gas emissions. Now, Liverpool has been singled out for special status by the United Nations for its efforts to decarbonise the local music and film production sectors. And later this week, there will be an environmentally friendly festival to showcase exactly what the city is doing. Here's our Merseyside political reporter, Claire Hamilton.
Live music is good for the soul, but is it good for the planet? Keeping the amps turned up to 11 takes power. And this Merseyside music venue uses green energy to do that. There's no meat on the menu, and they even lend out instruments to touring bands to encourage them to use public transport instead of tour buses.
We have drums, we have amps, we have microphones, we have cables, stands, which makes it a lot easier for bands.
Let me bring this meeting to a close.
World leaders have been meeting for climate change conference COP29 in Azerbaijan. Here in Birkenhead, this venue is hosting POP29, an event which asks, can the music industry be more sustainable?
One, obviously, a big thing that we've talked about a lot here is that audience travel is an enormous part of that carbon footprint.
I think that actually the most important thing is to really invest in your local music scene.
It bothers me, I think, when I go to festivals. Like we go to a festival in our local park and you see all the rubbish.
Come on, everybody sing!
With the help of disco legend Nile Rodgers, trip-hop mavericks Massive Attack and punk rockers Idols, Liverpool's staging 3 nights of low-carbon gigs next weekend at the council-owned arena, which you might recognise from the Eurovision Song Contest.
And what we're doing here is essentially an experiment, but it won't feel like an experiment to the people who are attending. We'll be doing lots of things like sharing the production between the artists across the 3 nights and hopefully provide a blueprint for things to be done a little bit better so that we can go less carbon, if not carbon neutral, in the future.
Liverpool's had a few successes with music in the past, and its council leader was the only UK politician, apart from the Prime Minister, to address COP29.
It's genuinely a great honour and privilege, and we'll make sure with those events we'll actually monitor what's worked and what hasn't worked so we can keep on improving those things, because we think there's a huge opportunity to make sure that we can move towards a net zero future for live music and the creative industries.
Sustainability is the new rock and roll.
So says Claire Hamilton. You've probably heard of these. There's the Northern 500 in Scotland and something called the Wild Atlantic Way on Ireland's west coast. They're long-distance routes which are designed to attract tourists to explore lesser-known areas. Well, now there's a new one, a new route in town. It's called the CCR 200. That's the Cumbria Coastal Route 200 miles long. And tourism and hospitality leaders met this week to talk about how they can tempt tourists out of the crowded lakes, out of the places like Windermere and Ambleside and Grasmere, to the tranquility of the seaside, as Mark McAlinden reports.
There's more than 100 miles of coastline in Cumbria from the south to the Solway Firth in the north, but perhaps still relatively unexplored. That's why tourism businesses were putting their heads together today to find ways of tempting more people to take the road less travelled.
We've got such fantastic hop-on, hop-off train opportunities, but there's nature, there's wildlife, there's food, there's culture, there's arts, there's heritage. So we feel that there's a huge opportunity to explore what we have, what we haven't got, and how we work to really bring that together.
The Cumbria Coastal Route 200 was set up after COVID as a driving route to rival others like the Wild Atlantic Way on Ireland's west coast and the South West Coast 300 in Scotland, bringing overnight stays to many communities on the west coast, like Maryport.
Maryport's on a journey where we've managed to spend, in the process of spending 11-12 million pounds worth of development. We've opened up a substantial number of businesses, and part of the journey is actually to bring more people into Maryport. We see this, the CCR route, as being a way that Maryport will actually be on the route and it'll be one of the jewels in the crown. In other words, a lot of people will come and stay there because of the activities and other bits and pieces we've got going on within the town.
North West England's tallest cliffs at St Bees are likely to be one attraction on the coastal route in Cumbria, where local businesses are keen to see more visitors.
A lot of people were a bit underlooked. It is a beautiful place. A lot of people do come to do the coast to coast and things, and we would love to welcome more people.
Getting more people here on foot or by bike is one thing, but it's also hoped to expand the CCR 200 beyond its finishing point in Carlisle.
What we would like to do is be able to make this an integral part of people's, I suppose, off the beat travelling opportunities, something that we call slow tourism, people who want to just get away from it all a little bit.
Slow tourism, you have to drive slowly. Mark McAlinden there. Dave's just emailed about this. He says Cumbria they can't have it both ways. Last week they were talking about charging people to visit. Now they're encouraging people to come, but I think the whole point is they're trying to get people to come but go to a different part of the region, so thereby, in its own way, alleviating some of the congestion. Anyway, your thoughts always welcome. Right, all this week the BBC is looking at how to spot scams and the efforts made to thwart them. One of the unlucky victims of scammers was Philip from Manchester. He was scammed out of £1,000 last month when he took a call from a man who claimed to be from his bank's fraud protection team. Funnily enough, my son got one just last week as well, and I was listening in. They didn't get any money out of him, I'm pleased to say, but unfortunately on this occasion Philip did lose some money, and he's been speaking to Mairead Smith.
They already had my long credit card number. They just verified the last 4 digits of it. They knew my name, my address. At some point, I just said, oh, wait a second, how do I know you're not a scam, that you are really from the bank? So he said to me, go into your banking app. I'll send you a notification, and that's how you'll know, because only we, the bank, would have access to be able to do that kind of thing. So I opened the bank app on my phone, and I get a message saying, do you authorize the declined transaction? I said to him, should I press N or cancel because I don't authorise it? And he said to me, he really put pressure on me, he said, no, you mustn't do that because that will make the transaction go ahead, because it will be a double negative where you're saying no, I do not decline the transaction. So I went ahead and pressed Y for yes. And that was the moment where I was essentially coerced into making this transaction for just under £1,000. I felt very naive, very gullible, very vulnerable. I felt very paranoid. I felt like I didn't want to come home and face my wife and explain to her how I've wasted this money that we work hard for. Thankfully, the bank did confirm that this was a classic case of coercion, a sophisticated scam, and that I will get the money back.
Well, thanks to Philip for talking to us. Talking to Mairead Smith there. Abby's doing the weather tonight. She was just telling me she also was done by a scam like this. She may tell us more in a minute. Lots of people do. It's very easy to fall for. The advice is, if you get a call like that, hang up and call your bank. If you need advice on scams, or maybe you've got a story to share that could help others, join BBC Radio Manchester and Morning Live for the Scam Safe Roadshow. Now, they're going to be in Stockport. If you're in that part of the Northwest, they're going to be in the Mersey Shopping Centre on Friday from 10 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. It's a chance to get free face-to-face advice from a range of experts, including the high street banks, the police and Age UK. That's this Friday from 10 in the morning for 3 hours in Stockport at the Mersey Shopping Centre. Right, let's move on to sports. A big night in the Champions League this evening at Anfield. Liverpool host Real Madrid. Real Madrid, of course, have won the competition more times than anybody else. However, Richard Askham is there for us, and it's Liverpool, Rich, who are probably the favourites going into this one. They're in better form.
They definitely are, Roger. Yeah, they'll fancy their chances. Liverpool top of the Premier League and the Champions League. Real Madrid really struggling for form. It really is a huge match. The Liverpool fans welcomed the team coach into Anfield a short time ago, as they like to do. We're going to be looking ahead to this game in a moment. But first of all, Manchester City. What on earth is going on there? Unlikely series of results continued last night.
Everybody knows the situation. I don't have to add absolutely anything. So now tomorrow we have to train, recovery and prepare the next game. Day off and have 2 or 3 days to prepare that and go for it. So we will learn for the future.
I think there are a few mistakes creeping into the team, which is very un-Manchester City, given their track record in recent years. Might be a need to have a reshuffle within the squad. I think some of the players may have had their time, possibly. But this is a strange concept. We've not seen this from Manchester City under Pep Guardiola. We've not seen this from Pep Guardiola himself. So a lot of questions at the minute and not many answers.
As for Liverpool, everything is going to plan, isn't it? Apart from maybe contracts affecting 3 key players, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah. Their contracts are all expiring in the summer. As for Mo Salah, he said recently after a game against Southampton that he hasn't been offered a new deal.
He's still brilliant and it's important that he stays, of course, but like I say, you don't know how much he's asking for, do we?
I'm surprised they haven't sorted this out yet, so hopefully they do soon, right?
How important is it that you keep Mo Salah?
It's important. Definitely, obviously, them 3 players up for contracts. Definitely need to keep 2 of them.
Now, just over the water from there, the chimes have been ringing from Birkenhead Town Hall every quarter of an hour since the late 1880s, but not anymore. The council's decided, because of just one complaint, that the chimes represent a statutory noise nuisance. And now they'll ring just once an hour, but some in the town aren't happy about the end of a 140-year tradition, as Andy Gill explains.
The Birkenhead Town Hall clock strikes 12 noon today, and for another 60 minutes, that's your lot. Back in August, a man who lives nearby complained that the quarter and half-hour chimes were taking their toll on him, and the council agreed to stop them. But that's caused a bit of a ding-dong with heritage campaigners who say 137 years of tradition is being lost.
A lot of people do like the chimes. They live their lives by them. OK, we've all got clocks and watches and iPhones to tell the time, but the chimes are a little bit more than that. It's part of people's day-to-day routine.
An environmental health officer from Wirral Council went round to the complainant's flat and decided that the chimes were loud enough to be classed as a statutory noise nuisance. If this were a private building, the owner would have to comply with a noise abatement notice. As it is, Wirral Council is complying with its own noise abatement notice. Among people passing the town hall today, some ringing endorsements for the chimes.
It's like living next to a train station. You knew the train was going to come past, so you know that the clock's going to chime.
I think they just become an integral part of the town, so they should remain, really. So it's a shame they've been turned off. They should go back on.
It's obviously something that's always gone on for many years, so I can't see the problem personally.
Do you have any sympathy with the person who complained? If they're being disturbed, maybe it's disturbing their sleep?
Yes, of course. The proper processes has been through. Environmental health have come out and determined that it's a statutory noise nuisance. But as far as I'm aware, this is the first complaint in 137 years.
In a statement, Wirral Council said it has a duty to investigate such cases and an obligation to comply with the law. But it may be too early to sound the death knell for the chimes. Campaigners hope they'll be restored if the man who complained ever moves away. Andy Gill, BBC North West Tonight, Birkenhead.
With a few very subtle puns. Right, let's move on to the weather. Abby is here, and as you said, we're talking about scams. You were got by one.
Literally last week, I know. Called by the bank, it's your fraud department. So we had some unusual activity on our account, so it seemed so legit. They had so much of my personal information. We need to reset your online banking. And being the idiot that I am, gave them a code.
Well, you're not alone.
Well, no, I know. It's so easy. So I'm still without cash, Roger, if you want to buy me a coffee.
No problem. Nice. At least. That's the least I can do.
Oh, so yeah. Stay safe. Scary world, isn't it, out there? Anyway, something a little bit better was the weather today, wasn't it? It was lovely. It was dry. It was sunny. Northwest was certainly best. We had some gorgeous weather photos sent in from our weather watchers, and no doubt there'll be more taken tomorrow. So if you would like to send your photos in to us here at Northwest Tonight, all the details can be found on the screen behind me, as well as I have done a little bit more information about that scam on my social media. So if you're interested in being nosy, then head there and find out the full story. So the forecast for tomorrow, there is going to be quite a lot of mist and fog around as we start the day, and that is going to be quite slow to clear, I think. Dry and sunny once it does, though, so a fine afternoon, but perhaps some poor visibility first thing tomorrow morning. High pressure keeping things settled over the next couple of days, but we will start to see a bit more of an Atlantic influence, I think, as we head towards the end of the week, and a milder weekend in store. So overnight tonight, it is looking dry and clear. Light winds, the perfect recipe really to cook up some mist and fog. So some of that is going to be very dense first thing tomorrow morning. Visibility will be poor. You might want to allow yourself a little bit of extra time, and it will be chilly as well. So you'll have to defrost the car first thing tomorrow morning with lows of -2 or -3 degrees. So a chilly, misty and foggy start to the day tomorrow. That could be slow to clear, perhaps even lingering into the afternoon in 1 or 2 places. But where it does, it should stay mostly dry and fine, just turning a little cloudier by the afternoon, with our temperatures only up at 5 or 6 degrees, but all change. Milder air arrives in time for the weekend, so by Saturday we'll be back at about 12 or 13 degrees. We could see 14 degrees on Sunday, but with that comes slightly more changeable conditions as low pressure approaches Friday. Still looking to be a fine and dry day, a little bit cloudier by the end of the day, windier too. Outbreaks of rain overnight into Saturday, and then a much milder weekend. Rog.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it just goes to show, doesn't it, that anybody can be victim to these things.
Yeah, and I had always thought I'll never fall for it. But there we go.
Scumbags. Sorry, am I allowed to say that? Anyway, thank you for watching and have a good evening.
Thank
good night.
you. Good night.